Welcome to the Two Pages Project, part of the Coil Entertainment Network. I'm Rob Steele. Just to let you know, we're still doing this every other week because I can only write so many of these stories. I need you to do some writing. Send them in, please. But now that that's out of the way, let's get to this week's story where we follow Lieutenant Cooper Wright on his biggest case ever, in that the victim is well over 500 pounds. Who could kill someone that big? Give a listen to Too Much Television by Rob Steele. You've pulled a big case this time, they'd said. You've never had a bigger case than this one, Coop, they'd said. I know several people I'd like to smack about the head right now. I enter the living room of our victim and see his body in a recliner in front of about a 60-inch flat-screen television. The screen has a kitchen chair sticking through it and into the wall behind it. Our victim has a rope wrapped around what passes for his neck. It's hard to tell as the rope disappears into folds of skin. This guy is over 500 pounds. Easy. Yeah, biggest case ever. That's funny. There are CSIs swarming around the house collecting evidence in their own well-organized manner. Our coroner, Dr. Sung-Ho Young, is arguing with Henry Ruth, his new assistant, on how exactly they're going to use the gurney to get the body back to the office for autopsy. Doc pauses long enough to nod greetings and spreads his arms in a very clear, yeah, that's how he died manner. Strangulation. That would explain the Bluetooth keyboard, spilled soda, and bowl of cheese puffs scattered across the carpet. I'm more formally greeted by Officer Scott Walker, who says this time he hasn't moved a thing. He hands me the wallet of our victim and says, our victim is Richard Bear Lee. Bailey? This guy doesn't look like a Bailey anything. No, sir. Bear-Lee. Hyphenated name. Age 53. Near as we can tell, he lives alone. No obvious sign of what he does for a living. Did you say Richard Bear Lee? Piped a young-looking CSI whose name I don't know. Walker nodded at him. I always wondered what he looked like. This guy is famous from the internet. He does reviews of movies and television programs. You know, reviews from Richie.com. I shoot Walker a look and he replies with a shrug. But now we have a lead. Our young CSI went back to work but was talking about the victim with some of the other CSIs. Richie was a blogger that reviewed movies and television but never seemed to like anything. I hear one of them say he didn't even like the original Star Wars. How can you not like the original Star Wars? I look back at our victim, and with the size of this guy, I'm struck with flashbacks to Return of the Jedi and that scene where Princess Leia strangles Jabba the Hutt. That's when I pick up on some of the chatter around the room. Did you hear about how he went off on that weather girl? A suspect, and a female one of that. Of course, that triggers the memories of Carrie Fisher in that metal bikini. He didn't like that she was doing the weather report while pregnant. Now I'm picturing a pregnant Carrie Fisher in the metal bikini. The one from Channel 12? Oh man, the one from Channel 6. Now it's a black, pregnant Carrie Fisher in the metal bikini. Isn't she the one who lost an arm while serving in Afghanistan? Now it's a... You know what? Never mind. I shake my head to clear it out. Yes, like an Etch-a-Sketch. I take a good look around the room, noting that there doesn't seem to be any sign of forced entrance. There is an odd remote by his chair that has only one button. I glove up and examine the remote a little more closely. It looks homemade. It also looks very 70s. Wood trim and a large black button. I push it and look around to see what happens. From behind me I hear a woomph sound with a bit of a grunt. I see that the front door to the house has closed automatically on one of the CSIs. I push the button again and the door opens. Now we probably know how the killer got inside. I grab the closest CSI. It's the young one whose name is Carter, apparently, and have him dust the door and doorbell. Might get a print off of that. And it might go with any epithelials we get off the rope. Just at a glance, I'm guessing someone didn't like a review, strangled him, and then put the chair through the TV. If the chair went first, my guess would be that even Jabba here would have gotten up. Who found the body? Officer Walker consults his notepad. That would be Eddie Nash. He says he delivers groceries here once a week. We ran him and he has 17 outstanding parking tickets. I had him taken in and booked for you. He's at the station, all nice and ready for you. As Walker finishes, he looks up and notices a disapproving scowl on my face. Now what I do? While he's there, in a cell, he's able to think up an excuse for anything. Did it occur to you that he might be our killer? Walker looks abashed again. Well, yeah, but he did have a big box of groceries and another in the car. He called it in because he said he couldn't get in to deliver. He stuck around when he could have just left without saying anything. I give Walker a mild nod. Not bad thinking there. But protocol says he still stays here next time. Got it? Walker nods back. I suspect most of our suspects would come from this guy's computer. We got that heading back? Walker nods again. Found 3 of them. Near as we can tell, they haven't been disturbed. Daryl Silverstone was here earlier. Says he lives nearby and heard the call and came for help. He says that one of them was a media server that moved media throughout the house. One was an old laptop that looked like it hadn't been used in a while. It had a Windows XP logo on it, so even I know it's not new. And then there was the one that Bluetooth keyboard was hooked to. I guess he did just about everything from this chair. That was my guess too. The chair was surrounded with used soda cans and assorted wrappers for frozen burritos and paper plates with, I think that's pizza residue on them. Although I'm surprised this guy left any residue from anything. So, recapping before I leave the scene. One 500-pound victim who didn't like anything. One computer that probably has a log of his recent critiques. And, according to our CSIs, one potential suspect in a one-armed veteran weatherwoman who is pregnant. As much as I may want to immediately rule her out, I can't. When she was pregnant, my wife could get so hormonal she could probably throw the car at me if she was pissed enough. So strangling Jabba the Hutt was probably within reason. And that's where I'll start my questions. Grocery boy can wait. I went to the Channel 6 broadcasting building on 9th Street. I'd been there several times before, but never on a case. I was hoping to meet with Danica Wooten, the weather girl and American veteran of 3 tours of Afghanistan. I have to admit, I wouldn't have pictured her as a weather girl, although I am reminded by several people that weather girl is not the appropriate term these days. At first, I'm disappointed to learn that she's not only not at the station, she's not in the country at the moment. The parent network saw her work and thought she'd be a perfect correspondent for whatever's going on in the Middle East right now. Instead, I'm taken to the main news studio and introduced to Dick Preachington, the head of the station's public relations.
You know, Lieutenant.
His words almost dripping with oil, trying to sound so much more slick than he really is.
We have had a number of complaints about her, but nowhere near the number of compliments and cards of encouragement. She's a beacon of hope to the American people. Not just a war vet, but a Purple Heart recipient that almost had an entire limb removed in the war. And did that stop her? Oh no, she came right back to the town where she grew up and became a celebrity.
He leaned in closer as if to whisper something in confidence. Unfortunately for my ear, he said it just as loud as everything else, if not louder.
You know, we wanted to have her be the anchor woman for the 6 o'clock news, but Margot Dennis wouldn't leave.
Miss Dennis being the long-standing anchor for the station. I glance over my shoulder and see Miss Dennis shoot Mr. Preachington a look so fierce I felt a pain in my shoulder as it passed. Of course, all of this may be for nothing. Mr. Bear Lee might have been killed over something completely different. But it felt right to be here. Not sure why. Mr. Preachington, is there a way to get a copy of the letters and stuff sent to Miss Wooten? We'd like to do some cross-referencing.
Absolutely,
he said, taking my arm briefly before I shrug it off. I do follow him to an office, but I also check my jacket for oil stains from where he grabbed me. That's when I realize who this guy reminds me of, vaguely. Ted Cruz, that senator from wherever Ted Cruz is from, right down to the oily hair. About 15 minutes later, I'm brought a good-sized box filled with letters and a USB thumb drive on top.
I made a copy of the emails, too, just in case.
He winked, because I obviously wasn't uncomfortable enough. I thank him and return the box to the lab, where I meet with Daryl Silverstone, our resident techie. While he goes over Mr. Bear Lee's computers, I begin sifting through the letters to Ms. Wooten. Most of what I'm finding here are congratulatory letters or, I guess, condolences on the loss of her arm. The left one, in case you're somehow not familiar with her. I end up with a small stack of complaints, but most of them are from white supremacists, and I rule those out. Killing Mr. Bear Lee would be something someone on her side would do. Again, if it has anything to do with it at all. I have a stack of stalker letters. I don't know that these guys, and they're all male, so guys is the right term, are really stalking her, but they sound like they have potential. Especially this one guy. Bruticus Checkroll. That has to be an alias, doesn't it? I take my list over to Daryl Silverstone and we cross-reference my list with what he's found on the computer. Unfortunately, none of the names match. That Channel 6 thing looks like it was a waste of time. That's when Daryl runs the name Bruticus Checkroll through the system. He doesn't exist. We cross-reference the address on the letter Bruticus sent and come up with the name T'Challa Mamadou. That has to be an alias too, doesn't it? T'Challa is the Black Panther from the Marvel Comics. Maybe it is a real name. I decide to find out. I take Detective Manny Vasquez with me, and just because something about this doesn't set well, I take Officer Scott Walker too. The house on Manning Street isn't that big or glamorous. Actually, it's small. Looks like it might have all of 3 rooms, including the bathroom. And that's small even for this part of town. The outside looks like it could use some repair, especially the sidewalk that leads to the door. Manny and Scott stand behind me as I knock on the door. Normally, I do prefer doorbells as they tend to have better results, but this door, unsurprisingly, doesn't have one. What happens next is a bit of a blur. I have my badge out and am beginning to hold it up when the door opens. Unfortunately, it opens quicker than I'm expecting, and I'm certainly not ready for the fist that lashes out and catches me in the jaw, knocking me to the ground. I remember bits and pieces after that. I hear someone yell police. I think it was Manny. I hear an electrical discharge, and then a searing pain in my left ankle. That's when I finish falling and my head hits the uneven sidewalk. My next conscious thought is being in a hospital bed with Manny and another Puerto Rican guy standing over me. Manny, I didn't know you had a brother. Both Mannys look skeptical, and one mutters something about not having a brother. I shake my head, and the Mannys blurrily merge into one person. I put a hand to my head and feel a bandage. I try to sit up and notice my left ankle is heavily bandaged. I try to look at Manny, but just fall back into what this hospital might call a pillow. All right, I give. What happened? I'll short form it for you, boss, Manny replies. He's starting to talk like me. Now if I can just get him to call me Koopa. We were going to talk to Bruticus Checkroll, remember? I vaguely remember nodding in response. It turns out he's a bit paranoid, but with good reason, I think. His real name is Eugene Dorkenshake, and he's AWOL from the Marines. He thought we were coming to take him back. When he opened the door, he punched you in the face, and you hit that uneven sidewalk hard and badly. Doctor says you have a concussion. I pointed my heavily taped foot and tried to look questioningly at Manny. Yeah, about that. Well, Corporal Dorkenshake is 6'7" and weighs about 315 pounds. Scott and I both tased him pretty quick, but he kind of fell on your leg and sprained it a bit. I do a long, slow, drawn-out facepalm. But the good news is that Dorkenshake's DNA matched the epithelials we got from the rope used to kill Mr. Bear Lee. But when we ran his prints, the Marines caught on that we might have him, and they took him. They want to try him in a military court since he was AWOL, and it had to do with Miss Hooten, who the Marines say they respect greatly. Case closed, boss. I suppose that's something. I had been wanting to take some time off, and I suppose I have to now. I just can't shake the feeling that I forgot something in this case. Something probably important. I decide not to let it bother me and let the pain meds kick in and nod off again. If it's important, I'll remember it eventually. 2 weeks later, I remember to have Eddie Nash released. If you'd like to have your story on the show, which is the reason we're here, and boy are we anxiously waiting, please send it to us. Check the website, 2pagesproject.com. That's the number 2. Pages Project uses letters. For the rules, and we'll take your short story and publish it first as an ebook on the website, then turn it into an audiobook on the podcast, and when we've got enough stories, we'll turn it all into an actual book that you can buy at a store. If you'd like to submit your story, email it to contact@2pagesproject.com. Remember, it's the number 2, because if you spell out 2, it goes somewhere completely different. And yes, I've tried making a deal with them, and they don't listen to me very much. Anyway, we will be open to any type of story you want to send us, not just mystery, but horror or sci-fi or fantasy or historical fiction, western, romance, whatever you want to write. Just submit your story for the audiobook treatment and publishing on our website. Don't forget to use the email address contact@2pagesproject.com. Also, don't forget to pass the show around because it's free and it's fun and it's available everywhere like iTunes or the Google Play Store. Seriously, just keep looking. It's all over the net, and hey, you found it once. You're listening to me now. Don't forget to follow all the Coil Entertainment Network shows on Pinterest and YouTube. And while you're at it, check out the Coil Entertainment Network store, where we've got t-shirts and hats that all go to support the network, so please check that out. And if you're interested in being part of the audiobook process, either as a voice in the story or if you have music that might work as a song in the background, awesome! Just contact us using the email contact@2pagesproject.com. So until next time, 2 weeks, be safe, and keep writing.